Nearly 1 year into the Trump administration, and NBC News has learned 30 to 40 White House personnel lack permanent security clearances. One of those folks was Rob Porter. Another, according to the Washington Post, is Jared Kushner. Porter is gone, but Kushner still has access to classified intelligence, including the presidential daily briefing. The director of national intelligence believes that needs to change.
I think sometimes it is necessary to have some type of preliminary clearance in order to fill a slot. But I have publicly stated if that is the case, the access has to be limited in terms of the kind of information they can be in a position to receive or not receive.
NBC's Ken Delanian is back. Also joining us, Ben Wittes, Senior Fellow in Governance Studies at Brookings Institution, MSNBC legal analyst and a friend of former FBI Director James Comey. Also Frank Figliuzzi, former Assistant Director for Counterintelligence at the FBI and an MSNBC National Security Analyst and contributor. Ken, first to you. What do you make of the warning from DNI Coates?
Well, look, what he just said there is not being followed by this White House. I think we have two problems. There's a bureaucratic problem where just in general it takes too long for people to get a security clearance. It shouldn't take a year. But secondly, we also have a problem with a president who apparently is ignoring the signals that are being sent to him by his own FBI about the suitability of certain people for a high clearance. And in the case of Jared Kushner, my sources tell me it is unprecedented for someone to be seeing the presidential daily brief who has not received a full security clearance. This is a document that has the nation's deepest secrets, including covert operation and top-level signals intelligence, NSA eavesdropping of foreign leaders. And to have someone looking at that document who hasn't been fully cleared, who hasn't been signed off on by the FBI, is unprecedented, and it's a decision directly made by Donald Trump, Katie.
Frank, you've been privy to a lot of sensitive information. I know Ken is privy to a lot of sources who tell him about this sort of stuff. But in your firsthand experience, why wouldn't you want someone with a temporary security clearance having a look at the sort of stuff that Ken just outlined?
Well, let's use Porter as an example. There could be areas of compromise and blackmail that go toward whether someone should actually see top secret. And let me point something out here. Just because you have an interim top secret, and we're not even clear on whether all these interims are top secret or secret, it doesn't mean that you're to see code word information within the top secret category. In fact, you really can't get an interim clearance that allows you to see code word. And if you're Porter or you're Kushner and you're handling the daily materials for the President of the United States, I guarantee you're seeing code word that you shouldn't be seeing without the proper vetting. So we've got what we call a spill here in the security clearance business. We've got people accessing work that they should not have access to.
But Frank, break that down into layman's terms, something that everybody can understand. Talk to me and everyday Americans. When you're talking about that sort of stuff, you're saying code word. What do you mean? And why should people be concerned, really concerned?
Yeah, so within the top secret classification, there are categories that you have to be read into and out of, and you're especially vetted for those. That means that even if you have a top secret, this is actually especially compartmented because it's singular source in nature. It might be a human source that literally is risking his life every day in a foreign country for the United States. It might be a microphone that's placed in some president's office overseas in another country that you need to be especially read into, or a new technique that science and technology has developed that allows us to read messages or bounce things off of buildings that allow us to understand what's being said inside the building. These are techniques that are extremely sensitive and cannot be accessed by people without the proper vetting. So if you've got somebody in the White House every day with access to the president, access to what the president's reading, and they've got personal issues, bankruptcy, credit problems, scorned spouses or girlfriends or boyfriends, legal issues, you don't know where they're vulnerable and compromisable, and they shouldn't be accessed. Or
relationships with foreign governments where, I don't know, maybe you do real estate business with them or trying to do real estate business with them. Jared Kushner is about to lose his partner in this building down the street from where we are right now in 666 Fifth Avenue, which means that his family is going to go into a whole lot of debt. They're already in a lot of debt, but could go into some could face some very severe consequences if they default on that loan, which I believe is somewhere gosh, I think it's about a $1 billion loan. Correct me if I'm wrong, if anybody knows better, but it's a whole lot of money regardless. When you have that sort of thing, Ben, where you're tied up in real estate, or you're tied up with potentially having dealings with foreign governments for whatever business reason, you don't have a security clearance. Elaborate on that, Ben.
Well, I mean, look, I think the message of today's hearing is that the intelligence community leadership is significantly more concerned about White House security clearances than the White House is. And that's a reflection of exactly the sort of thing that you're describing. There are a bunch of people, and Jared Kushner certainly appears to be one of them, who would not be able to get a security clearance in the context of work for any of these agencies, where, you know, people don't really start work generally until the clearance comes through, and they're on long-term clearance, temporary security clearances, despite in some cases some pretty obviously, if not disqualifying, at least disqualification raising background concerns. And this is the kind of thing that, you know, shocks and terrifies intelligence professionals. But at the end of the day, the president is entitled to share information with anyone he wants. And that's the problem with having a president who doesn't protect information and doesn't surround himself with the sort of people who you can trust to protect highly sensitive information of the type that Frank was describing. It's
a $1.2 billion mortgage. It's due by February 2019. This is according to Curb New York, which has done a lot of reporting on this. Gentlemen, thank you very much for trying to explain it to us. We appreciate it. And reminder, reporters are going to be asking Sarah Huckabee Sanders about what I call the Swiss cheese timeline surrounding Rob Porter, and also the process surrounding security clearances, why the White House won't give us a straight answer on who gets a security clearance and why.